Look, let's be real for a second. Why is it that making $100,000 a year in America somehow feels like you're barely scraping by? You've got the degree, you've got the good job, you're checking all the boxes of the American dream, but at the end of every month, your checking account looks like a ghost town. You're one transmission failure or one unexpected medical bill away from a total financial meltdown. It's exhausting, right? We've been conditioned to believe that this is just the way it is, that debt is a tool, that a 5% savings rate is a victory, and that if we just get that next raise, everything will magically fix itself. But here's the cold, hard truth. The system we're living in is designed to keep you consuming, not building. While we're out here debating whether we can afford the pro version of the latest iPhone, there's an entire nation across the globe that has turned the simple act of saving into a high-stakes competitive sport. They aren't just surviving, they are fundamentally rewriting the rules of wealth. And if we don't start paying attention to how they're doing it, we're going to spend the rest of our lives running on a treadmill that's going nowhere. My name's Troy, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money and why most people stay trapped in the middle-class cycle. If you're someone who feels like you're working harder than ever, but your net worth is staying stuck in the mud, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Let's start with a number that should honestly keep you up at night. In the United States, we're told that saving 10 to 15% of our income is the gold standard. That's what your HR department tells you when they set up your 401k. But in reality, the average American household is lucky to hit 5%. Some years, it even dips down into the 2s and 3s. Now, compare that to China. The average Chinese household saves $36 out of every 100 they earn. Think about that. For every $100 that comes through the door, 36 goes straight into the vault. That's not a slight edge. That is a complete philosophical shift. If you're making $5,000 a month after taxes here in the States, a 5% savings rate means you're putting away $250. In that same scenario, a Chinese family is tucking away $1,800. Over a decade, assuming you're both throwing that money into something like the S&P 500, the difference in your net worth isn't just a few $1,000s. It's the difference between retiring in your 40s or working until you're 75. Now, I know what you're thinking. Troy, the cost of living is different. They don't have the same expenses. Sure, but that's an excuse we use to stay comfortable. The reality is that China's gross savings rate has averaged nearly 46% since the early 1950s. They've maintained this through economic shifts that would make the 2008 financial crisis look like a walk in the park. They don't save because it's easy. They save because it's a non-negotiable part of their identity. You might have heard of Wang Shenai. She's a 32-year-old woman in Nanjing who became a viral sensation for one reason. She saves 90% of her salary. Let that sink in for a minute. She lives on 10% of what she makes. Now, look, I'm not saying you need to go that extreme. I like a good steak and a comfortable pair of shoes as much as the next guy. But the fact that 500 million people watched her story and debated it tells you everything you need to know about the culture. In America, if someone says they're saving 90%, we call them cheap or say they're missing out on life. In China, she's a titan of discipline. She owns 2 apartments in one of the most expensive cities in the country, and she didn't do it by gambling on meme coins or hustling 24/7. She did it through the sheer brute force of saving. She turned the 10-to-1 rule into her lifestyle. Spend 1 yuan for every 10 you earn. Here's where it gets interesting for us. Even if you think 90% is insane, what happens if you just aim for it? Most of us aim for 10% and end up at 3%. If you aim for 50% and you fail miserably, you'll probably end up at 25%. That failure still puts you 5 times ahead of the average American. This is about shifting the goalposts. We've set the bar so low in U.S. consumer culture that we're celebrating mediocrity while our financial houses are built on sand. Most people in the U.S. treat their bank account like a bucket with a hole in it. Money goes in, bills get paid, some fun stuff happens, and at the end of the month, we look at the bottom and hope there's a few scraps left over to move into savings. That is a recipe for permanent anxiety. The Chinese approach uses something called zero-based budgeting, but with a massive twist. In a standard US budget, you might use an app to track what you spent. In a Chinese household, you assign every single dollar a job before the month even starts. But, and this is the crucial part, the very first job assigned is to the savings account. It's the pay-yourself-first principle on steroids. If you earn $4,000 and your goal is a 30% savings rate, $1,200 is gone before you even look at your rent. You then force your life to fit into the remaining $2,800. This flips the script. Instead of saving what's left over after spending, you spend what's left over after saving. This is the only way to kill lifestyle inflation. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You get a $5,000 raise at work, and suddenly you need a better car or a bigger apartment. Your income went up, but your bank account stayed the same. By using this zero-based, savings-first approach, any raise you get goes directly to your Roth IRA or your brokerage account before you even have a chance to get used to the extra cash. You stay broke on paper while your net worth explodes behind the scenes. We have been brainwashed by the most sophisticated marketing machine in human history. In America, the line between a need and a want has been completely blurred. You need a phone. Do you need the $1,200 flagship model with the titanium frame? No, you want it. You need transportation. Do you need a $700 a month SUV payment? No, you want it. Chinese saving culture treats the distinction between needs and wants with surgical precision. They look at a purchase and ask, what is the cost per use over 5 years? They aren't just being cheap, they're being efficient. If they buy a pair of shoes, those shoes better be resolable and last a decade. Every dollar spent on a want is viewed as a dollar stolen from their future self. Think about the math here. If you skip the $1,000 phone upgrade and invest that money into an S&P 500 index fund, in 30 years, at an average 10% return, that one decision is worth nearly $17,500. Was that slightly better camera worth $17,000 of your retirement? When you start looking at the world through the lens of opportunity cost, your spending habits change real fast. Here's where I might get a little frustrated. We have normalized debt to a point that is absolutely terrifying. The average American household is carrying over $9,000 in credit card debt. We finance everything. Cars, furniture, even our clothes through buy now, pay later schemes. We've been sold this idea that a good credit score is the ultimate sign of financial health. Newsflash, a credit score is just a measure of how good you are at being a borrower. It's a I love debt score. In China, debt is viewed with massive suspicion. If you can't pay cash, the default assumption is that you can't afford it, period. The idea of taking out a personal loan for a vacation or financing a car at 7% interest sounds borderline insane to them. Why? Because they understand that interest is a tax on the poor and a reward for the rich. When you carry a balance on a credit card at 22% interest, you aren't just paying for the item, you are actively transferring your future wealth to a bank in Manhattan. By living a cash-only lifestyle, Chinese families avoid the interest trap. While we're busy making monthly payments to 5 different creditors, they're using that same money to buy assets. Imagine how much you could save if you didn't have a car payment, a student loan payment, or a credit card bill. For most Americans, that's an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a month. That's the secret right there. It's not that they make more money, it's that they don't let the banks bleed them dry. Now let's talk about where that saved money actually goes. In the US, we see education as a burden. We take out massive student loans, spend 4 years getting a degree, and then spend the next 20 years complaining about the payments. In Chinese culture, education is treated as the highest yielding asset in existence. They don't just go to school. They invest in education with a cold, calculated focus on return on investment, ROI. They will live on rice and vegetables to pay for tutoring because they've done the math. If you spend $100,000 on a specialized education that increases your child's earning potential by $50,000 a year, that is a 50% annual return on your capital. Show me a stock, a piece of real estate, or a crypto coin that gives you a guaranteed 50% return every single year for 40 years. It doesn't exist. This is why the savings rate is so high. They aren't hoarding cash. They are building a human capital war chest. They are playing a multi-generational game while we're playing a multi-week game. There's a darker, more intense side to this as well. Because of the demographic shifts in China over the last few decades, there's been a massive gender imbalance. In some areas, there are way more men than women. What happens when you have more men competing for fewer partners? Money becomes the ultimate filter. In the US, we go on dating apps and worry about our profile picture. In China, for a long time, the standard was, do you own property? Do you have a significant savings account? This created a savings arms race. Young men started saving with a level of ferocity that we can't even imagine because their ability to start a family literally depended on it. While that sounds intense, it created a generation of hyper-disciplined savers. They learned to delay gratification in their 20s, the most important decade for compound interest, and those habits stuck for life. They aren't saving for a rainy day, they're saving for their entire future existence. We also have to acknowledge the social safety net, or lack thereof. In America, we have this vague hope that Social Security will be there for us, or that Medicare will cover our health costs when we're old. We've become soft because we expect the system to catch us. Chinese families don't have that luxury. They know that if they don't save for retirement or medical emergencies, they are on their own. This creates a survival urgency. When you realize that no one is coming to save you, that $5 latte starts to look a lot more like a threat to your future survival. We need to adopt a little bit of that survivalist mindset here in the US. With the Federal Reserve battling inflation and the future of Social Security looking more uncertain by the day, you cannot afford to rely on the system. You have to be your own central bank. Your savings account isn't just a stashed-away fund. It is your personal insurance policy against a world that doesn't care about your financial well-being. In the US, we have this weird obsession with keeping up with the Joneses. We want to look rich, even if we're drowning in debt. We'll lease a BMW just so the neighbors think we're doing well. In Chinese culture, there's a concept of face, but it's increasingly being tied to financial stability and wisdom rather than just outward display. Being known as a smart saver carries weight, but more importantly, they practice family transparency. In an American household, money's often a secret. Parents don't tell the kids how much they make, and couples often hide spending from each other. It's a mess of shame and mystery. In a typical high-saving Chinese household, everyone is in on the plan. The kids know the savings goals, the spouse knows where every yuan is going. When the whole family is rowing in the same direction, it's a lot harder to fall off the wagon. If your kids understand that skipping the expensive sneakers this month means the family hits its goal of buying a rental property or funding a college account, they become part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Transparency kills the mystery of where the money went and replaces it with a shared mission. All right, I've given you a lot of theory. Now let's talk about how you, living in the US, can actually use this to change your life starting today. You don't have to move to Nanjing or stop eating out forever, but you do need to get try-hard about your money. First, you need to implement the 1% creep. If you're saving 5% now, don't try to jump to 36% tomorrow. You'll quit in a week. Instead, move it to 6% this month, then 7% next month. Use your 401k or your Roth IRA to automate this. If you never see the money in your checking account, you won't spend it. Second, you have to kill the ghost expenses. Take a Saturday morning, sit down with your bank statements, and find every single subscription, every convenience fee, and every impulse buy you've made in the last 90 days. We call these ghost expenses because they haunt your budget without providing any real value. Cut them ruthlessly. Third, embrace extreme transparency. If you have a partner, sit down and show them everything. No secrets, no his and hers debt. If you're single, find a money buddy, someone who is also trying to get their life together, and check in once a week. Accountability is the only thing that beats impulse. Finally, shift your status symbols. Stop trying to impress people with things you don't own. Start taking pride in the size of your brokerage account, the lack of debt on your credit card, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing you're okay if the world goes sideways. The Chinese have mastered the art of financial discipline, not because they have some secret DNA, but because they built a culture that values the future over the present. We can do the same thing. We can take the American dream, which has become a nightmare of debt for many, and turn it back into a reality by simply being more intentional with our resources. True financial freedom isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and how hard that money works for you. You can continue to be a victim of the consumer machine, or you can start building your own empire, $1 at a time. If this video opened your eyes even a little bit, do me a favor, leave a comment below with your current savings goal. Are you aiming for 10%, 20%? Maybe you're going full try-hard and aiming for 50%. Let's start a conversation and hold each other accountable. Don't forget to subscribe to Try Hard Investor for more deep dives into the psychology and strategy of building real wealth. I'm Troy, and I'll see you in the next one. Go get to work.